Ever wondered why some folks with the same credentials seem to be doing better at interviewing than others? Maybe you're in a position right now where you are preparing for an interview and are getting the jitters, not knowing how to effectively bring yourself across. In this video, I will clarify the main rules of engagement, how you can adopt the language of the interviewer to really bring your case across the finish line. My name is Christian Schopke. I used to work at Amazon and Google, have had the privilege of interviewing a few hundred candidates myself, and have naturally been interviewed more times than I would like to count. Rule number one, you are here to solve someone else's problem. When you respond to a specific job posting, these people are looking for someone who can add value in the way that they understand. And I would even go further. The hiring process, be it for the recruiter and especially the hiring manager, is actually a very stressful undertaking. They come up with a job description based on historical knowledge on how that job was done in the past, combined with a list of what they wished it would do in the future. Very rarely is it based on an objective, genuine list of requirements that truly spells out what is needed, especially in growth companies that experience constant change. For you, that means that you really need to listen, read, and tune into what requirements they have and speak specifically to those points, going as far as using their language. That also means that most companies will not hire based on potential. That is a huge risk to take, especially with all the time and effort that goes into the hiring process. And most hiring managers would not want to take that risk, understandably. This is different for when you get hired into a specific program as an associate coming out of college, or a senior something manager graduating from business school. There, the expectation is that you operate on a certain level, and employers with these programs normally have a slew of roles that can tap into these criteria. And then there's the role of proxies. If you can make the case that because you have done ABC, you will excel doing DEF, then that works well. That needs to be a simple translation though. That doesn't need a lot of creativity or blind faith. In short, you need to create confidence that you can solve their problem at hand. And because of your existing abilities and because of the evidence, the results that you can share up to that point. Rule number two actually builds on the last thought of instilling confidence in your abilities. Every job interview actually only has 3 core questions, of which all other questions are a version of. Can you do the job? Will you stick around? And will I enjoy working with you? The first one is pretty straightforward. Tell me about a time when you have done X. Solved a problem like this before. How did you do it? What was challenging about it? How have you tackled these challenges? Who stood in your way and how did you mitigate that? How did you turn adversity into opportunity, which could also shed a light on the second question. When the going gets rough, can you handle it or will you bow out? Also, do you look for new opportunities of growth when a routine sets in, or will you get bored and start complaining? On whether I will enjoy working with you, that's a no if you're just about complaining and not doing something about it. Nobody wants a Debbie Downer on their team. This is also about whether you act as a multiplier or someone who creates momentum, elevating the performance of others. Rule number 3, results or evidence-based answers say a ton more than a supposed ability to cope with a ton of tasks. You will not get hired because you rattle down a list that spells out, look how busy I was, I did all of these things. Instead, you should provide depth in your answers by having done a handful of things and having done them really well, and being able to quantify that in a way that your interviewer can relate to it. Or even better, can actually write it down and share it with their hiring committee, for example. This is where STAR or SARI comes in super handy. The acronyms for situation, task, action, result, and situation, action, result. Interesting. They're pretty much the same, except SARI provides for something memorable, something out of the ordinary at the end that your interviewer could remember you by. Ideally, you do STARI. In essence, the situation, here's a problem, a challenge that I faced and why it's relevant to the business or me personally. Again, your interviewer needs to be able to relate to that. The task could be about what you did to approach or define this problem more clearly. I ran an analysis, took a look at our sales numbers, returns, customer feedback, whatever, to help me understand why our numbers were down. The action part is about your response, It's about your response to this problem. I went back to the manufacturer. We had switched 2-3 months. The result is the juicy part, where all of your work, the tasks, the analysis, meeting with the manufacturer, coming up with recommendations, lead to something, either a binary outcome, here's the decision we made, or even something more quantifiable. The interesting part there might be that your way of approaching this problem and consequent outcome then led to a whole new way of procuring supplies, both in terms of requirements, but also to allow for gradual blah, blah, blah. So rule number 1, empathy. Know who you're interviewing with and be a solution to their problem, not just a bundle of well-intentioned joy and potential. Rule number 2, have the narratives around those 3 questions buttoned down. Can you do the job? Will you stick around? And will I enjoy working with you? And rule number 3, organize your hopefully evidence-based responses in a clear, easy to follow star or sorry structure. Goodness. Which brings me to the most important rule of them all. Didn't see that one coming, eh? Rule number 4, a dance called substance and communication. Everything we have talked about falls into these 2 buckets. It doesn't matter how well you communicate if you don't have substance, if you don't have the data or the evidence to instill confidence in your abilities. And as far as communicating substance is concerned, you don't need to be a charmer. You need to be clear and concise and literally cut out any of the noise you would want to squeeze in to make your case. Remember, your interviewers go through hundreds of resumes and a dozen interviews. There is a lot of BS, and for a hiring manager having to remove themselves from their job and spend time and energy on teasing the substance out of you, this becomes agony, which no thank you note can salvage. Oh yeah, do send a thank you note within 24 hours. That's it. Happy interviewing.